Assalamu alaikum, good morning, khushamdeed. Ji ayanu goedemorgen, ishbata.
Pakhair Agale, Ni Hao, Chunashume, Washmale, Ohio Gonzaimes, Guten Morgen, Ola, Boyor, Privyet, Kaifa Hal, Halishuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasal Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabia, Balli Karaya, and thank you very much everybody for tuning into PTV World. You watching World this morning, alongside my very amazing, very talented co-host, Ms. Shiza Hashmi, and I happen to be Shahzad Ehsan Khan. It's a fine but a very chilly morning over here in Islamabad. It's 19 degrees centigrade over here, but out there in 46 different countries, may it be morning, evening or night, we hope and pray that everything around you is doing perfectly fine and that everybody is doing wonderfully well. Hello Shiza, Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing today?
Wa alaikum salam. I'm doing absolutely great. Thank you so much for asking. And I hope you do better because I do know you've got on some morning allergies and whatnot, which is so common in winter. I feel like every year we talk about it and we promise ourselves we're going to get flu shots, but I don't think we do.
I mean, I'm still thinking and I'm still a little confused whether I should get them or not, whether I should get a flu jab or not, because I think that, then when the body releases the mucus and that the body actually kind of generates a new one, I think it really needs to kind of go out because it's a natural process. So this is the only stigma where, which kind of lies with me as well, whether to get a flu jab or not. But ladies and gentlemen, I think it's totally on to you, and please make sure that you kind of consult your doctor. Absolutely. But you can see that we're back to wearing jackets and kind of making sure that we are warm as well. And I believe that it's very important for everybody and anybody who's out there because this transition of the weather this time around, and Shiza, I believe that it's a very important message. Because from 2019, since the pandemic broke out, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that nobody actually got flu, nobody got cough, nobody got anything else other than that. And as soon as we see or we saw that, there was a transition of COVID kind of going back or coming into a shape where it's going to be non-existent, we kind of saw that, that the other diseases emerged. I mean, may it be dengue, may it be any viral infections. And these viral infections, ladies and gentlemen, are very hard to understand even for the doctors these days because they don't know what's going wrong. And no matter how many tests you get done, how many doctors you go to, it's still very uncertain why you kind of get these virals and, what actually happens in these virals as well.
Right, and I really hope and pray all of you
out there. It's better to
be
safe.
Definitely, all of you out there stay safe as well. And we pray for you too, Shahzad.
Exactly.
But we have a lot to talk about today. First things first, congratulations to us again.
Exactly.
What happened? Do you want to highlight?
Exactly. I think that we kind of, the kind of security New Zealand was looking for, I think that we have actually given them that kind of security. In fact, rather insecurity now because of the fact that Pakistan, alhamdulillah, in the first two World Cup matches has been victorious. With India, we won from 10 wickets, ladies and gentlemen. And with New Zealand, because New Zealand was here just prior to the T20 World Cup over here in Pakistan, and as soon as when the first match was about to start, the New Zealanders actually kind of came up with this idea that we are at a security risk and that we actually have to go back. And there was a lot of controversy around that as well in international media that the security conditions might not be very apt. But I think Pakistanis Babar and Shaheen have actually given a great answer, not even Shaheen or Babar. I think that we really need to kind of mention Haris Rauf because he kind of took 4 wickets and Haris Rauf was one of those bowlers they weren't really prepared for. So Pakistan won the toss and wanted New Zealand to kind of bat first as well. So New Zealand gave us a total target of 134, which is very low for the loss of 8 wickets over there in Dubai, ladies and gentlemen. The pitches kind of do not go, but Afghanis did score more than 200 as well, which I think is to their credit. But Pakistan was crumbling a little bit and it was an easy match, that's how it looked. But since Pakistanis were able to get 8 wickets in the first half of the match, so obviously the New Zealanders kind of tried to get some wickets, which they did, and Rizwan Babar went early on as well, but Rizwan and Asif did well, Shoaib Malik did well as well, and alhamdulillah we were victorious against New Zealand. 2 big teams, they were, New Zealand and India, whenever we talk about them, the biggest teams, ladies and gentlemen, may it be the T20 cricket, may it be one day, may it be the test format as well. But Pakistan, congratulations, you've done a great job indeed.
Absolutely, and I also feel like, Shahzad, the spirits were already sort of lifted, right? Because the first match with India, we did absolutely great, and then the nation supported the cricket team a lot. Exactly. So I think the encouragement does definitely sort of make you play better, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's
along
true.
Along with the added pressure,
yeah,
of
and
course.
this encouragement needs to be there. And to be very honest, I think for all the last 2 or 3 decades that I have been on this planet, I have never seen Pakistani team facing any other team and being so calm in my seat and being like, hey, you know what, this is easy for Pakistan. I think we never had this confidence. Even if we talk about our teams back in 1990s or early 2000s as well, that wasn't the confidence. But alhamdulillah, our team looks very well prepared. The energy is there as well. But at this point of time, ladies and gentlemen, there's one more thing, that people are not even celebrating just in Pakistan.
Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere people are celebrating, may it be England, may it be Dubai, may it be anywhere else as well. But imagine that our brethren, ladies and gentlemen, in the Indian illegally occupied Kashmir were actually detained and arrested just because they were celebrating Pakistan's victory against India.
Imagine. And it's so unfortunate. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, today happens to be the 27th of October. Also the reason why we are wearing black sort of to show, of course, our solidarity with our Kashmiri brethren. Today, Pakistan observes this particular day as Black Day. Ever since, well, so many years now. It's been more than 74 years altogether that the struggle of freedom for Kashmiris is going on.
Exactly.
And Pakistan is standing by it, of course, politically, diplomatically, and emotionally, of course. And we're always there for whatever the result of this struggle will be, as long as it's in the favor of Kashmiris particularly.
Exactly.
We have a lot to talk about, of course, and we have a very apt and one of my favorite panel of guests over here, actually. But let's take a look at a small report about this particular day. When we come back, we shall do the discussion.
Let's take a look at this title.
کشمیر اے وادی کشمیر اے وادی کشمیر اے وادی کشمیر ہر رنگ میں اب کر کے رہیں گے تجھے تسخیر اے وادی کشمیر 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 کچھ فکر نہیں خون کے دریا جو بہیں گے ہم ظلم کے طوفان سے ٹکرا کے رہیں گے کچھ فکر نہیں خون کے دریا جو بہیں گے ہم ظلم کے طوفان سے ٹکرا کے رہیں گے توڑیں گے غلامی کی پڑی پاؤں میں ہر رنگ میں اب کر کے رہیں گے تجھے تسخیر اے وادی کشمیر 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 اللہ کا احسان ہے ایمان ہمارا تو یہی کہتا ہے قرآن ہمارا اللہ کا احسان ہے ایمان ہمارا ہم سے تو یہی کہتا ہے قرآن ہمارا جنت کبھی ہو سکتی نہیں کفر کی جاتی جنت کبھی ہو سکتی نہیں کفر کی جاگیر کفر کی جاگیر ہر رنگ میں اب کر کے رہیں گے تجھے تسخیر اے وادی کشمیر 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 ظالم کا یہاں زیر زبر ہو کے رہے گا مظلوم کی آہوں کا اثر ہو کے رہے گا ظالم کا یہاں زیر زبر ہو کے رہے گا مظلوم کی آہوں کا اثر ہو کے رہے گا ہر طرف یہاں گونجے گا جب نعرہ तस्खीर है वादी कश्मीर, है वादी कश्मीर, है वादी कश्मीर, है वादी कश्मीर। हर रंग में अब करके रहेंगे तुझे तस्खीर है वादी कश्मीर, है वादी कश्मीर, है वादी कश्मीर।
Right, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I think it's about time that we kind of introduce those guests whom we think are very suitable and are amazing, alhamdulillah, and have always been very amazing with their words and even kind, no matter what happens. And on this day, I think it is important to kind of have an equal representation, which is why, hence, introducing, ladies and gentlemen, somebody who happens to be the chairman of United Jammu Kashmir Coalition. She happens to be Ms. Sundas Malik. Hello, assalamu alaikum, sabah khair. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me here on this important day of all days.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. And alongside her, ladies and gentlemen, we're lucky that we've actually been joined by the chairman, Kashmir Institute of Information, International Relations, Altaf Hussain Wani Sahab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
Wonderful
you for
to have
having
you. And last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by Kashmir lobbyist himself. He happens to be a human rights activist. He is Mr. Zaman Bajwa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam, and thanks a lot for inviting us on this important
Thank you
day.
very much.
So first things first, ladies and gentlemen, like we already did mention throughout the day, we are going to be having rallies and peaceful protests and walks to be standing in solidarity with Kashmir. Also, a moment of silence will be observed. But I think it's only fair that we begin with the history of this particular day, why it is black in the history of Pakistan as well, along with Kashmir. What do you want to say, Ms. Sundas?
Well, I think the reason Pakistan considers it to be a black day, of course, is in solidarity with Kashmiris, who I think there is no differentiation between in the hearts and minds of Pakistanis or Kashmiris.
True.
We do not consider ourselves as two nations. So an attack on Kashmir is always considered an attack on Pakistan.
True. Definitely.
And hence, when 27th October is observed as Black Day, it is the day when the Indian forces officially entered the Kashmir Valley, and that is when we believe that we were occupied, the occupation began. So this is the day of the beginning of the occupation, which has still been going on. So, but it's very important because there are a lot of days which are behind and ahead of the 27th of October, which sort of sums up why this time was the hardest and still is hard for many people who have anything to do with Jammu. Myself, I'm a descendant of the survivors of Jammu massacre, so I understand what they must have gone through during these days of uncertainty and killings and everything going on.
And we can't even imagine, to be honest. I don't think there's words to sort of describe that, what they've been going through as well. And for so long, where you said that on this particular day, of course, the forces landed in the now illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir as well. But ever since then, for more than 70 years now, each and every single day of every week, they are subjugated to such violences, atrocities, unabated acts of state-sponsored terrorism. And this is just, it's sort of really easy for us to say because they're just words, but they are not just words. It's happening to people. It's happening to people regardless of their gender, regardless of their age, and regardless of their background. And just this year as well, I mean, there were news coming in of extrajudicial killings of even juveniles. So Wani Saab, I want you to sort of paint us a picture for, ever since the, again, military siege happened in August as well for India. Demographics have been changed. We know the entire science behind it. But what is the condition now of the valley after the change?
You see, actually, when we talk about the Black Day first,
okay, yes, please.
Each and every day in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir from 27th of October 1947 till date is a Black Day.
Indeed.
And one way or the other way, you see the repression, you see the subjugation, you see all kinds of human rights violations taking place in occupied Kashmir. So for the people of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, every day in the history from 1947 till date is a Black Day. But unfortunately, there was no media, there was no other things, so people did not know about the miseries and sufferings of the people of Indian occupied Kashmir till the recent era when this digital media, we have the social media and other these platforms, then people came to know about what is actually happening in Kashmir. Before this, people used to tell us when there was in the news, then some 20 people were killed in Kashmir. People used, is it true? There are 20 people killed in Kashmir. But now people themselves see the images, people themselves see all of them, the visuals, how the Indian Army is conducting there. And now you said, told me about what has happened about after August 5th, 2019. So that was again a black day in the history of Kashmir. The history, the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir state was dismantled into 2 union territories. Indian Hindutva government took the direct reins of the Kashmir in their hands, and they are ruling Kashmir through their army and RSS goons. Kashmir is being ruled by them. And we talked about the change in domicile laws, which they took, and till date, what the figures we have, 3.8 million people have been issued the domiciles. Most of them are the non-state subjects who have been issued those domiciles. What this domicile means to them?
Yeah.
Because it's for the first time that a non-state subject, any Indian can purchase an immovable property in Kashmir. An Indian can seek a job in Kashmir, even in the 4th class job in Kashmir. So this means, and they have given their army an authority, they can declare any area as a strategic area and take possession of that area and build cantonments over there. And for that purpose, they have not to seek permission from any local authority or from the local public. Even they can take over the townships and villages for that purpose. And this means the present Indian government is, on one hand, for the last 33 years, we saw a military repression of its highest kind. We saw the enforced disciplines, we saw arbitrary detentions, we saw torture, and for that we have a host of literature available in the international human rights watchdog reports, and you can see that. But now what they have done after this, the culture, our language, and each and every vantage of Kashmiri or Muslim, that is being dismantled in occupied Kashmir. That is the way they are operating. The Indian forces are operating, or the Indian government is operating. There is no Kashmiri now, and the top slot of the government hierarchy. No Kashmiri. All those posts are being taken by the non-state subjects. That is, now Kashmiris have been turned from citizens to the subjects, and they are not subjects, the very kind of subjects what they were in Sikh rule or in the Maharaja's rule. So each and every civil, political right has been snatched from the Kashmiris. You cannot raise your voice, as you said yesterday, when Pakistan defeated India in T20 World Cup opener. And people of Kashmir have been always celebrating the Pakistan's victory. And in this period of time, they had a reason to celebrate because Pakistan won against India. So they celebrated. And for that purpose, all of those FIRs have been registered against all those people who were in the Srinagar Medical College Hospital or in the Sher-e-Kashmir Medical Institute. Each and everywhere, wherever there are protests, FIR has been lodged against them. And whosoever wrote, congratulations Pakistan, well done Team Pakistan, and UPAP, another draconian law has been invoked against them, that this is against the security of the state, what you are doing. So, in a way, at present, when India has choked each and every civic space in Kashmir, a peaceful space in Kashmir, a space in the electronic or digital media for the people of Kashmir, there is a kind of I don't know when it will happen and what turn it will take, but it is a volcanic situation in occupied Kashmir for the people of Kashmir, for the youth of Kashmir. How they will react to this situation in future, this needs to be seen.
Definitely.
Exactly. And which is why, sir, in addition to that, I actually want to move on to Zaman Bajwa Sahab as well, because when we talk about social media, first of all, obviously, sir even mentioned about the 5th of August as well, where Kashmir has been under siege now for more than 2 years, and where we saw a complete blackout, all the resources were taken away, there was no internet, no communications, nobody was going to school, the education was at halt, and it has been taking place since 1947, 27th of October, coming back or referring to Black Day. Now imagine that that all of those rules were actually invoked so that that people shouldn't actually be celebrating Pakistan's victory. But the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, alhamdulillah, willfully and with all their heart want to stand by Pakistan as well. You happen to be a Kashmir lobbyist yourself. You happen to be a human rights activist. Sir is working, in fact, the chairman of an international relations institute. You happen to be a human rights activist. Now, as human rights activist, I think that that a human rights activist should actually be able to kind of calculate the way they have contributed towards their freedom to struggle, or the struggle for freedom as well. How would you kind of, in terms of social media these days, or the advantages of social media, would you think that all of those advantages which we feel advantageous of while being in a very sovereign state are actually disadvantages for people who are living in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
Actually, you raise a very valid question, and if you saw the talk about the social media, first of all, when there was a communication blackout after the 5th August, India took to blackout all the communication links. Internet was blocked, and at that moment, there was an operation in Indian occupied Kashmir. People were killing and people want to go out the streets, but there was no way to communicate, and there was a COVID situation. So actually there was a psychological trauma as well. So they were not able to go to schools, they were not able to communicate abroad out with their families. In that worst situation, Kashmir, youth of Kashmiris, the photographer from the Kashmiri journalists, they took the pictures on the spot from the ground zero, and they go out in any way from outside the valley, and they posted that pictures to the international media. So actually they narrated their story, what is happening at that moment. So all these pictures were floated on the international forums, and actually there is a resilience of the Kashmiris. Whatever the situation, they know how to narrate their story and how to propagate and how to spread their message. If you talk about the Indian side and use of the social media, you know about the EU Disinfo Lab. How systematically they use social media, they use fake websites, they use fake NGOs against Pakistan. And few days back, Wall Street Journal published a report that how systematically Indian government is actually separating a hate campaign against Muslims in Indian occupied Kashmir and Muslim outside occupied Kashmir. So actually India have the resources, they have a human power, and they are using every mean of digital media to malign Pakistan, to actually to link out this freedom struggle with terrorism. Being a human rights activist and Pakistani, we try our best to propagate Pakistan's stance on social media. And you go a few days back, there is a Kashmiri song narrated by Pakistani Kashmiri. So all about these atrocities, and actually we are trying our best, and inshallah, Kashmiri, due to the resilience of the Kashmiris and the efforts of Pakistani youth, India can't be hold the voices of Kashmiris.
Exactly, and that's great, and that's true, and we would love to kind of stand by that as well, and this is what we are doing, and I think every Pakistani struggle kind of directs in that direction as well. But there's an important question. Now, for example, let's talk about Afghanistan, let's talk about Jerusalem, Israel, or Palestine for that matter. No matter what happens, I mean, God forbid if it's an area which is struck with a lot of atrocities, and that too from any other country, the international media would come forward. People would come forward on international forums, maybe United Nations. Imran Khan Saab made a wonderful speech at the United Nations speaking about people with the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir as well. Why is it that whenever we kind of come down to talk about Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that no other nation kind of steps ahead, no other nation kind of shows resilience and then kind of join hands as well? I think for Pakistan it has been Turkey only. We've always been there and have always made a point that we are going to be with our Pakistani brethren. Why so?
Well, in my opinion, the thing Bajwa Saab was talking about, propagating, I think India is very good at it.
Okay.
Pakistan it has the truth, but it doesn't have the malice.
Okay.
India, I think, is more driven by malice towards Pakistan.
And they're even
towards
driven by a
Kashmir.
propagating
Yes.
media as well.
So their propagation is so strong. As you see, they have Bollywood. When they try to portray Kashmiris as militants, you know, they have changed words such as crackdown to cordon and search of operations. They have changed extrajudicial killing to, you know, security measure. This is how they have built a narrative. And I think, unfortunately, as Kashmiris, as Pakistanis, although we may have succeeded individually, collectively we have failed, because the narrative is not that coerced and strong. So that's the reason I think that when it comes to the Kashmir issue, the world at large does not have the relevant information. And I would say information deficit is also a huge thing. Like Altaf Saab said, up until, you know, a few years ago, even Kashmiris such as myself sitting in Kashmir would not know what's going on across the LOC. So it's now, it has started, things have started coming to light, confirmed reports, and hence I think that's why Pakistan even moved forward with the dossier, which is again based in fact, not propaganda.
True.
And
So,
you know,
yes.
Sundar, you're right, absolutely right, where you said that, you know, international fora is sort of looking at it again, and the report you're talking about. So the military observers group is supposed to be there, people are supposed to operate over there, or, you know, report from that area as well. But now collecting all these anecdotes, sir, Vani Saab, what it makes me feel is definitely we're looking at another Auschwitz camp. If we're looking at rather either Ladakh, or if we're either looking at Jammu Valley for itself as well. So now imagine that after a century, we are now able to call what it was. You know, it was an ethnic cleansing when we talk about the Nazi atrocities going on. It was all sorts of, well, you know, atrocities coming together, like I mentioned. And now we are letting it happen in front of our eyes, now that we do have an international organization as well to look after such things, and regionalism going on too. So what does it look like to you, being of course an analyst and then a social activist, humanitarian
And what
activist
damage
too?
will it bring to you know, the people of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir because of this demographic change? Because you know, there's a bigger picture to this.
So I think I spoke on that already, that these demographic changes which are taking place, this will be reason. You see, the many policies which government of India has invoked, one of them is that's domicile law. But along with that is a new industrial policy to giving land to the Indian industrialists to come over there. When industry comes, it comes with host of its security and other stuff. So again a demographic change, again more military and more other things there. Again that India is trying to create the separate sanctuaries for the Kashmiri Pandits and other people. Again more military, more security stuff will there. So this is a very dangerous proposition in Indian occupied Kashmir for people of Kashmir. It will, as I said earlier, it will make them landless, it will make them jobless, it will make them homeless. This is a design of the RSS to force the people of Jammu and Kashmir out of the Jammu and Kashmir, so that they can migrate, they could flee from there, and it will be free for the Hinduta forces to run in Kashmir and to be in Kashmir and to capture Kashmir. This is one. When you come out at the international level, what we see,
we're letting Auschwitz happen all over again.
Yeah, you see, when we see what's happening in Afghanistan, we see lots of voices from around the globe, and when whatever is happening in Palestine, we see lots of voices in Kashmir. But we must not forget that for Kashmir also, from 2016 onwards, we have seen a lot of international media covering Kashmir. You see, Al Jazeera has been in the forefront.
BBC.
We see the press TV, BBC, CNN, and TRT, and other channels in Turkey. They have been there. They are covering the Kashmir. They are there. But at the same time, you see the Indian propaganda, what Ms. Sundar was telling you, that at the prime time in Indian channels, at prime time, that too in English, you will see either Pakistan maligning or Kashmir bashing. This is all what narrative they carry, and these are seen all around the globe. It's not for the local. So for us, we see we have this channel, what's called wherever we are, and we convey through this channel. We don't have other channels of communication to do it. But even then, I must give credit to the international human rights organizations at this point of time.
Yep.
The way they documented things, the way they posted that, and also some of most of the Kashmiris who risked their lives and made some documentaries and posted on the postcards in different YouTube channels, and people world over came to know on this. And that is why from 5th of August till date, you have 9 communications sent to Government of India by the United Nations Special Procedures.
Okay.
It's kind of, unfortunately, people here don't read those. People don't go through that. So that is what the international human rights watchdogs are doing. They can do only this. They don't have any
They can't
force.
intervene,
They
right.
don't have any force. They don't have any army with them, so then they can implement the recommendation or
But
that.
so sorry,
But
yeah.
the one thing which I must add to this is that that's we people, we in Pakistan, in diaspora, in elsewhere, wherever Pakistani Kashmiri youth is, they have to take this information to the civil society of the different countries. That is the only way to get more and more support from there. What Palestinians do around the globe, for Afghanistan, people have their own interests and all that.
Exactly.
Why do they there? Why do they curse Taliban, and why do say for women rights and all that in Afghanistan? And that's the other reason. But for us or for other situations, it's we who have to take this information to the desktop of the international opinion makers.
Exactly, and
Only
And
that's
public
true, sir.
opinion matters.
Yeah, and
yes.
that's true, and it really needs to be done as well, because Pakistan, I think, has actually gone through that by itself as well, and which is why, now when everybody kind of comes down to Pakistan, they've seen vlogs of a lot of other foreigners, which kind of say in those videos that, hey, you know what, Pakistan is safe to be. I mean, wherever you may probably go, people have shared their best experiences from Pakistan, and this is how the general public learns, which is correct. But sir, I mean, I have a lot of other questions. I do not want to kind of deviate from this conversation. We actually have a small report at this point, which we want to share. But once we come back, we kind of want to talk about, Bajwa Sahab, we'll give you 2-3 minutes to kind of talk about how do you think that diplomatically the nations need to come together, because media covering them, may it be Al Jazeera, may it be TRT, may it be any other channel, is a very different point of view, and everybody will have their own agenda to follow, but the global leadership needs to come together, sit down on the table and find a solution for that, because I think that the atrocities have been there for a longer period of time. Let's take a look at this report, and once you're back, we'll move on to Bajwa Sahab.
When Pakistan says that Kashmir is an unfinished agenda of partition, it says this in the backdrop of history of Kashmir and UN resolutions on the issue. Despite being a Muslim majority state and overwhelming support in favor of joining Pakistan at the time of partition, Maharaja Hari Singh trampled upon the will of Kashmiris. The Kashmir dispute is the oldest unresolved international conflict in the world today. India's forcible occupation of the state of Jammu and Kashmir in 1947 is the main cause of the dispute. India claims to have signed a controversial document, the Instrument of Accession, on 26 October 1947 with the Maharaja of Kashmir. Maharaja's fears of rebellion among Kashmiris in favor of joining Pakistan led him to invite Indian forces. India put forth a condition. It will only help if Maharaja accedes Kashmir to India. And thus the invasion of Kashmir began by the occupying Indian forces. There are doubts about the very existence of the Instrument of Accession. The United Nations also does not consider Indian claim as legally valid. It recognizes Kashmir as a disputed territory. The fact is, all the principles on the basis of which the Indian subcontinent was partitioned by the British in 1947 justify Kashmir becoming part of Pakistan. The state had majority Muslim population, and it not only enjoyed geographical proximity with Pakistan, but also had essential economic linkages with the territories constituting Pakistan. As India began forceful occupation, Pakistani forces rushed to halt Indian advance. Several key areas of Kashmir were liberated from the occupiers. Looking at imminent routing of its forces, India rushed to the United Nations to seek resolution of the issue at the Security Council. The United Nations Security Council resolution of 21st April 1948, one of the principal UN resolutions on Kashmir, left the matter to be decided by Kashmiris themselves through a free and impartial plebiscite. Knowing the ground realities well, India never intended to hold plebiscite. Now, with the fascist Hindutva regime in New Delhi, it has given the Indian state new powers to introduce grossly inhumane laws in occupied Kashmir, take away any remaining rights of Kashmiris, and keep the entire valley in a state of prison. Since coming into power in 2018, Prime Minister Imran Khan has been vocal in his support for the Kashmir cause, reinvigorated Pakistan's diplomatic efforts, and his words exposing the Indian atrocities in the occupied valley echo in the highest platforms in the world. But the world remains silent, and Kashmiris continue to suffer under brutal Indian occupation. This is Ali Andaz reporting for PTV World.
And obviously, ladies and gentlemen, the entire world remains silent, which we're definitely trying to break, and we will get through that as well. Because when you look at the struggle of the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir from 1947 till now, 74 years, they haven't been addressed as well. And I think that the struggle is going to continue. Pakistan is going to be with them, shana bashana, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand as well. But Bajwa sahab, I actually posed a question. We were kind of heading out towards the report. Would you like to answer now?
You were talking about the diplomatic efforts. Actually, after the prime ministership of Imran Khan, we have gained the momentum. Pakistan Foreign Office is much active on this issue. We need is that we have to appoint some experts, some people who know about the Kashmir on our diplomatic abroad. So as well as we have being a nation, being a civil society, we have to activate ourselves. We have to put our efforts on our level.
Yes.
State is doing things, but civil society and the youth of Pakistan have a duty as well.
Bigger responsibility.
If being a nation, we can do things collectively, inshallah, this will impact and Kashmir will see the day of the freedom.
Inshallah.
Mr.
Or at
Das,
least a plebiscite.
Anything on your closing notes?
Well, I would just like to say that if I can give one message on this day is to remember the fact that 250,000 Muslims were wiped out from Jammu on the 6th of November, which is just coming. Like I said, these days are the dark days.
Definitely.
So 250,000 then, and that was for demographic changes. And that is what India is currently doing as well. So 74 years of having a genocidal fascist regime implemented on you, Kashmiris now do not need a management of their issue. Kashmir issue does not require management, it requires resolution.
Definitely.
And when you talk about resolution, then plebiscite is the only thing we want. That is the only thing that we demand, and that is the only thing that will satisfy the people of Kashmir.
Exactly.
So I think we should remember that what started in 74 years back has not ended, and it will not end through management.
Thank you very much for saying that, which is why I said towards the end, I'm very sorry, but last question because of Ms. Sundas's messages as well, and that is that, you know, obviously plebiscite, I mean, we have wanted that for a longer period of time for the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but with all of that demographic change, do you think that the plebiscite will actually be the voice of the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir?
The plebiscite is always the voice of the people of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir. If when plebiscite happens, there is a mechanism for that in the resolution, United Nations Resolution 5th January 1949 resolution. There is always written in that the people who are the state subjects of Jammu and Kashmir who live for 10 years on the 15th of August 1947 in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, those people are the state subject and they have the vote. With my last comment, I will say
nothing has been by the book so far.
That's in the book. Lastly, you see, for the people of Kashmir, plebiscite is the only option, and that's what we need. But at the same time, I must say that the diplomatic efforts which we are carrying out at this time, they need to be intensified in a way so that we can get more and more support in the political governments around the globe for the resolution of Kashmir issue. There is a realization all around the globe in the civil society as well as the human rights family that people of Kashmir are suffering. They need some solicitation from us. So that's
thank you very much.
all.
And thank you very much for taking our time and that too on such an important day where, ladies and gentlemen, the entire Pakistan is observing a black day as well. But for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, as Burhan Wani Sahab even said, Ms. Sundas even said, and Bajwa Sahab said, that everybody needs to kind of put in effort and make sure that the truth is actually out there for
Yes.
the entire masses out there on this entire globe. And you know, this is how we're going to move forward. This is how the people are going to get to know. This is how international communities will come together, and inshallah we will see a day that the plebiscite will take place for the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and that's exactly what we want as well.
Yeah, and we pray for that. Of course, my heart goes out to all the Kashmiris, especially right now, whose every day is a black day, like Sundus mentioned, Shazad, because there are days that we observe, but they are definitely going through it and living through it. So my heart goes out to them, my prayers go out to them, and I really hope and pray, inshallah, in the nearest and the soonest future, we get to see a resolution for our Kashmiri brethren too. But towards the end, ladies and gentlemen, I have to say that public opinion matters, and it matters so much, you have no idea. It puts a pressure on the states as well, and I hope we understand that. So on an individual level, what we have to do is never to stay silent. We have our gadgets and they are our weapons. We have to spread our information, the things going on in Kashmir, as much as we can, because that is how public opinion will be shaped and changed eventually. Special transmission for this Black Day will keep on going on PTV World till the end of the day, of course, but right now we are going to take a leave and leave you to the latest updates from this hour as well. Till the next time, take care. Allah Hafiz.